This office won't stand for any harassment.
Sir, did you see the man that did this to you?
Yes, I did. He's a big cop. Worst homicide. Callahan.
I want an answer.
Yeah, I've been following him on my own time. And anybody can tell I didn't do that to him.
How?
Because he looks too damn good, that's how.
He's got a busload of kids, and I can't take that chance. I gave my word of honor on it, and he will not be molested. And that's a direct order, Callahan.
Now on BBC One, just after 9:10, the main news of the evening, we join Martin Lewis in the newsroom.
A superpower summit will be held tomorrow week in Finland with the Gulf crisis on the agenda. But President Bush says the meeting is not driven by any fear that he and Mr. Gorbachev might be apart on the issue. Western hostages are still waiting to leave Iraq, but 68 Japanese women and children have been flown out to Jordan. Good evening. With just 1 week's notice, President Bush and President Gorbachev are to hold a summit meeting in Finland. The announcement came just after talks in Jordan between the Iraqi Foreign Minister and the UN Secretary General ended with no sign of any breakthrough. President Bush said the summit would be wide-ranging, with arms negotiations and other issues on the agenda, as well as the crisis in the Gulf. The Soviet Union has joined the United States in condemning the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, and President Bush said the summit was not driven by any worry that the two superpowers might be drifting apart on the issue. He also said he did not see Moscow playing a mediating role in the crisis.
Throughout this crisis, Mr. Bush has, from his holiday home and even from his boat, which has secure communications, kept in touch with world leaders. But surprisingly, there's been no direct contact with President Gorbachev. Mr. Bush was gone fishing while his national security advisor was explaining why the Kremlin might want a summit now.
It could be that the Soviets are concerned that there could be military action and that they're hoping for a solution based on the Security Council resolutions and their acceptance by Saddam Hussein, and are worried about a military outcome. But that's just speculation.
But sound speculation. There's been some concern expressed from Moscow at the US military build-up in the Gulf. The commander of the Warsaw Pact forces says he has grave doubts about it, and Mr. Gorbachev himself says he wants to see a peaceful solution. Mr. Bush is anxious to stamp on suggestions that he called this summit to paper over cracks in the Moscow-Washington relationship.
It wasn't driven by any worry that we might be apart, rather that there's a wide array of questions that could use consultation at this time.
Mr. Bush was more intent on attacking Saddam Hussein's treatment of foreign hostages in Iraq.
But there's a certain brutality, certain tawdry performance in all of this, just turning off world opinion. It is so base and so outrageous that I think most people in the Arab world are very embarrassed by this. I've talked to so many leaders, and they all agree that this is just a despicable performance.
Keith Graves, BBC News, Washington.
Iraq has begun flying out some of the foreign women and children held hostage since the invasion of Kuwait. This evening, an Iraqi airliner with nearly 70 Japanese nationals on board flew from Baghdad to the Jordanian capital Amman. There is no word yet on whether a second Iraqi plane, which is believed to be carrying well over 100 Britons, has left Baghdad airport.
For most of them, cooped up in hotels, the word came through only an hour before they had to leave that the flight was really on. And the moment when they had to say goodbye to their husbands was a difficult one. There's no knowing when they'll see them again. At the airport itself, people cheered up a little as the prospect of leaving became a reality. Some wrote out signs for us, wishing good luck to the people they'd left behind.
It's my son's birthday tomorrow, and all I want is his father to join us. And that's all I want, is all the men to come home safely. That's all we want.
Another woman, Mrs. Barbara Griffiths, was asked when she had last seen her husband.
2nd of August, when he went out to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I haven't seen him since.
Have you been given any idea where he is?
Yes, they say he's been well treated. I just hope so. I hope so.
When was it?
By this time, the whole experience was starting to tell on some of the children. Others, though, seemed unaffected by it all.
Well, where we stayed, this man called Ali, he got us toys to play with, and the food was really nice.
Good. And an American woman had brought her cat out with her. A group of British Airways stewardesses had been held ever since the invasion of Kuwait. Their uniforms were the only clothes they had.
Well, we were at the airport hotel for 15 days, and then the crew that were left at that point, there was 9 of us, were taken to a military installation.
According to another BA stewardess who did have a change of clothes, the group of airline staff she had been with in Kuwait did quite well.
Changed from day to day, but everybody seemed to cope relatively well under the circumstances.
And when did you find out you were going to get out?
About 2 hours ago.
And what was that like?
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful. Can't wait to go home and celebrate and see my family.
The relief that these people feel at getting out doesn't, of course, make up in any way for the husbands they've left behind them. Allowing women and children to leave, and there are many more who aren't yet free, is one thing. But there is still a large number of men who remain here as hostages, and the Iraqi term for them, guests, seems less suitable than ever. John Simpson, BBC News, Baghdad.
Well, that report was censored by the Iraqi authorities, but John Simpson is on the line now from Baghdad. John, what was cut out?
It was rather ludicrous. We tried to broadcast a picture of Saddam Hussein with some of the women and children standing around underneath it. I used the words under the picture of Saddam Hussein, and the censor said this showed that we were trying to imply that Saddam Hussein was somehow dominating over the people, and they didn't like that, so they cut that out. That was trivial enough. But the other thing was that the telephones, you see, are not censored at the moment as far as we know, and only the television station is censored. And so I just felt it was important to leave out some of the things the women told us about their less pleasant experiences in Kuwait.
What did they tell you?
Well, one woman told me how she'd been arrested as she tried to escape across the desert to Saudi Arabia. She'd been stopped by Iraqi soldiers. They'd fired shots over their heads of her and her husband and their party. They'd been taken back. They were quite well treated, I think, after that, but they were certainly fired at. Another woman told me that 5 Iraqi soldiers had come to their flat, had kicked their way in, had pointed guns at them, and had treated them quite roughly in arresting them.
John, is there any late word on the departure of the women and children, the British women and children who are at the airport?
I'm afraid they're still sitting in their planes. It can't be a very pleasant experience. They've been there now for nearly 3 hours. They're waiting, I think, for the Reverend Jesse Jackson, of all people, who's former American presidential candidate and human rights activist, who's been down in Kuwait picking up some Americans who are quite seriously ill and bringing them back to Baghdad. His plane is delayed, and these people are waiting for him to come back.
John, thank you very much indeed. 2 days of talks in Jordan between the UN Secretary-General Javier Pérez de Cuellar and the Iraqi Foreign Minister Tariq Aziz have ended with no sign of a breakthrough. Mr. Aziz said afterwards that only an Arab solution could resolve the crisis.
Even though the lights burned on into a second evening of talks, there was to be no breakthrough. No public handshakes either, just crisp formality, with the Iraqi Foreign Secretary emerging alone to make a statement, insisting yet again on only an Arab solution to an Arab problem and taking a swipe at the UN Security Council.
There are governments inside the Security Council, and those governments are not neutral. Some of these governments have their own policies, they have their own interests. Some of these policies are good, some of these policies are bad. And we know that a number of the permanent members in the Security Council, I mean the governments who have a permanent seat in the Security Council have not been the good friends of this region.
Refusing all questions, he left. Compliance with the UN's resolutions, Iraqi withdrawal from Kuwait was not mentioned. The Secretary-General followed a few minutes later, saying he would hold his comments until tomorrow. Although Tariq Aziz mentioned wanting to keep up contacts with the United Nations, there was almost nothing in what he said which would suggest that such contacts were going to take place or that anything positive would come out of them. Kate Adey, BBC News, Amman.
Here, the Prime Minister has said Iraq's seizure of Western hostages would not affect any decision about what she called necessary action against the country. In an interview on TVAM's Sunday programme to be broadcast tomorrow, Mrs. Thatcher was asked about the implications for hostages of a military strike.
Would you disregard, in your views, in a situation like that, disregard the question of hostages?
If you in fact allow the taking of hostages, terrible as it is, to determine your own action against a dictator, he has won. And all he would ever do, or anyone else with similar ambitions would ever do, is to take hostages, knowing that other people would then never take the requisite action to stop such a dictator.
The Foreign Secretary Douglas Hurd has spoken by radio to the British Embassy in Kuwait for the first time since it was closed off by Iraqi troops 8 days ago. Mr. Hurd, who is touring the Gulf region, was told the diplomats had enough supplies to hold out for weeks rather than days.
The Foreign Secretary is visiting 6 countries in 6 days to stiffen Arab resolve against Saddam Hussein. But soon after arriving in the Gulf, he went to the British Embassy here in Abu Dhabi and managed to speak by radio link to the diplomatic mission in Kuwait, now surrounded by soldiers.
Mr. Hurd spoke to the embassy in Kuwait for about 15 minutes. The ambassador, Michael Weston, reported that he and his 3 besieged staff are still in good spirits, though a little hot and sticky.
And tonight, Mr. Hurd welcomed Iraq's decision to fly home some Western hostages.
That is good news, but of course limited news. It's only the beginning of what we believe should be a complete process of abandoning the policy of the human shield and letting all men, women and children leave Iraq and Kuwait.
This evening, the Foreign Secretary met a group of Kuwaiti exiles and promised them Iraq will be forced to pull out of their country one way or another. That was his message too in the Gulf state of Qatar today, where he announced that Britain will be sending thousands of chemical warfare protection suits. RAF Jaguars are also to start using this airbase for the first time. Qatar's own Air Force has only 12 planes, though it's been reinforced this week by these American F-16s. According to the Foreign Secretary here, it is now touch and go whether there'll be war or peace. Ben Brown, BBC News in the Gulf.
Saudi Arabia's defense minister has insisted the foreign troops in his country are there for defensive reasons only. He warned that Saudi Arabia would not allow itself to be used as a launching pad for any military offensive against Iraq.
All the emphasis here so far is on defense. The Saudi armed forces are the tripwire up against the border with Kuwait, and the Americans, with their much greater firepower and manpower, are somewhere in the desert in support of them. But it became clear today, if defense turns to attack, that could create serious strains within the alliance. The Saudi Defense Minister, Prince Sultan bin Abdulaziz, was talking to reporters about the present delicate balance between war and peace. It was out of place, he said, to predict that brotherly Iraq would not leave brotherly Kuwait. No one had contacted his government about a plan to rescue the hostages. Saudi Arabia was a peaceful country and would not be the scene of any aggressive action.
Take care of the soldiers. Yes, sir.
There's consultation, but no chain of command between the American general and his Saudi opposite number. The Americans will remain, the Saudis say, until their assignment is over, and we ask them to leave. Martin Bell, BBC News, on the Gulf coast of Saudi Arabia.
Now the rest of the news. The Prince of Wales is said to be in an excellent condition tonight after undergoing a 3-hour operation on his broken arm. Surgeons at the Queen's Medical Centre in Nottingham say they're delighted by the way the operation went.
Prince Charles is now recovering in his room after surgery that went exactly according to plan. The Princess, who arrived early this morning, half an hour before the operation, has spent much of the day at his side. But she also surprised and delighted patients here by visiting several of the wards, particularly the children's wards. The Prince's medical team was led by two of the top orthopaedic surgeons in the country. They began at 8 o'clock, and by lunchtime, the hospital was able to report that everything had gone well.
Prince of Wales' condition is excellent. I'm told that he's already moving his arm. He will experience some pain, but the pain is under control.
The Prince will spend at least a week convalescing here. Doctors will be encouraging him to get out of bed in the next couple of days, but he'll find walking quite painful at first because of the bone graft from his hip. Although the surgeons are delighted by the way the operation went, it's too early to say whether there'll be a lasting effect from the injury. For the moment, they say, the Prince is sleeping off the effects of the anaesthetics and his condition is being closely monitored. The Princess left the hospital tonight, having spent 13 hours with her husband. It's thought she's staying somewhere in the area and will return tomorrow.
Now with news of cricket's NatWest Trophy and still more British successes in the European Athletics Championships, here's David Davis.
Lancashire have become the first county to win both cricket's knockout competitions in one season by taking the NatWest Trophy at Lord's. The man of the match was Philip de Freitas as Lancashire beat Northamptonshire comfortably. Their victory came only 7 weeks after they'd captured the Benson and Hedges Cup, and they did it with more than 10 overs to spare.
A game that seemed over almost as soon as it had begun. Philip de Freitas started with the removal of Felton. Then, punctuated by scenes of joy, came a steady procession of bowed heads. By the time de Freitas had got down to Bailey, and then Lamb, Northants, a strong batting side on paper, had been shredded. 39 for 5, all the wickets to the man of the match. He'll have impressed those announcing on Thursday the England squad to tour Australia, so may Capel, who followed with something of a fight back. He hit 36 courageous runs despite a broken finger until a combination of bad luck and carelessness cost him his wicket. Allett's deflection caught him leaving his crease for a second time. Ambrose provided more of exactly the same, lusty hitting. He top-scored with 48 as Northants pulled themselves towards respectability, and then a bizarre repetition of Capel's run-out. Bad luck or bad batting, Ambrose knew then that the eventual total of 171 wouldn't be enough. Still, the underdogs kept the game alive for a while. When Mendes was out, the score was 28 for 2, and if Fairbrother had gone, things might have been different. Ambrose's fumble let him off on 6, his side on 37, and from then on, Lancashire's win was only a matter of time. Fairbrother went on to score 81 before Ambrose did catch him, and Watkinson won it with a 6. An emphatic conclusion to a one-sided final that made history. Lancashire are the first county to win both one-day knockout competitions in the same season.
Football and Liverpool are the only club in the English First Division with maximum points just 1 week into the new season. John Barnes got a late winner in the victory against Aston Villa. Lee Chapman scored twice as Leeds continued their bright start to the season against Norwich. Luton's Lars Elstrup also produced 2 goals as his side won at Southampton, and Sheffield Wednesday's David Hurst scored 4 times in his side's emphatic defeat of Hull. In Scotland, Hans Hillhouse scored for the second successive week in Aberdeen's victory over Celtic, and the Hibernian goalkeeper Andy Gorham, with some splendid saves, earned a draw for his team against Rangers. Great Britain has enjoyed its best European Athletics Championships by winning a record 9 gold medals. The performance puts them second in the overall medals table behind East Germany. Today's major success came in the 4x400 metres relay race, but earlier there'd been British disappointment. Duncan Jones with this report.
After the protests and counter-protests, time to return to the business of racing for Peter Elliott and for Steve Cram, bidding to win the 1500 metres title for the 3rd successive time. On the final bend, all was well. Cram led with Elliott in close attention. But the fitness problems which had dogged the preparations of both proved too serious a handicap.
And Cram still driving for home. What a comeback by the champion. And Di Napoli on the near side, finishing fast. And Harold comes even faster. And it's Harold of East Germany who comes home in front. Harold of East Germany wins it. Di Napoli second, Silva third. A photograph between Cram and Elliott for 4th and 5th places.
Earlier, British hopes of gold in the men's 4x100 metres relay were thwarted by an inspired performance from the French team. Their time of 37.79 seconds gave the championships its first world record. Britain's consolation, a silver and the third fastest time in history. In the women's 4x100 relay, Kirsten Krabbe claimed her third gold of the week in the predicted East German victory. Less expected, perhaps, was the bronze medal for Britain, which was to be repeated in the 4x400 relay. Britain's record 9th gold of the championships came in the very last event, the men's 4x400 relay.
Britain won 4 years ago. Roger Black was the anchor man, and he's going to do it again. And he's going to do it much more easily. Great Britain, a absolutely staggering performance. Roger Black comes home by yards, and Great Britain take the championship, 258.23.
It was a fitting end to an outstanding week for the British team.
And on that note of triumph, that is the BBC News Tonight. Good night.
Good evening. Well, it was a brighter day over England and Wales than I expected it to be, and the temperature reached 24 degrees, the mid-70s, down at the Isle of Wight and also in the Channel Islands. Could be a bit warmer tomorrow, but there is some rain coming across the north at the moment. You can just see it peeping into the radar coverage over southwest Scotland and the far north of England, and that rain moving further south to about Humberside during the first part of the night before it eventually moves off into the North Sea. So places to the east of higher ground drying up later on, but persistent drizzly rain down the western side of Scotland and Cumbria, and probably Northern Ireland as well. Temperatures tonight down to about 12, the mid-50s. Well, this ridge of high pressure in the south tomorrow maintaining pretty good conditions, plenty of warm sunshine around, but weather fronts up in the north and some strong winds making it rather more unsettled up there. First thing in the morning, quite cloudy, still some outbreaks of rain about, the best of the sunshine as you head southwestwards down through Wales and into southwest England. But during the course of the morning into the afternoon, you'll find many places to the east of higher ground in both England and Scotland will brighten up. There'll be some sunshine coming through, but then during the afternoon some heavier rain, some more persistent rain, possibly with thunder, getting into western Scotland and Northern Ireland once again. So some very pleasant conditions in the south, and the highest temperatures there, 23 to 25 degrees. Perfect cricket weather. I hope some of you will be going to the Fenners for the Lord's Taverners cricket match. I'll see you there.
There's a new season of contemporary drama in Screen One.
I'm not in business for helping people, darling. I'm a journalist.
Newshounds, a black comedy which explores the cutthroat world of tabloid journalism and the fierce competition for the front page.
Hello, Sonia. We don't want to have to embarrass you in front of your neighbours, Virginia. If you don't talk to us, then we'll have to go and talk to Sean.
I mean, a week ago I was having a nice interview with them, asking me about me hobbies and me star sign and all that. Now they're doing this to me.
You've obviously got something to hide then, haven't you, if you're not going to talk? And we're going to find out more, because we're going to keep on this story. It won't just be one day's paper, Virginia. This is worth a week.
Screen One, tomorrow at 9:20.
Our first film on the small screen tonight is an action-packed movie about a tough cop who takes on the jobs too rough for anyone else. Clint Eastwood is Dirty Harry.